AITA for refusing to forgive my cousin and my family after they ruined my life with a lie. I'm 29, I work for a logistics company, and what happened about 8 months ago literally shattered my entire family. I mean, this was not a normal fight, the kind you have at Thanksgiving and then everyone gets over it. This was something that changed everything forever. And the worst part, what makes me angry to this day, is that it all started with a lie. A lie so absurd that I still can't believe anyone fell for it. But that's life, I guess. People believe what they want to believe, especially when it comes to accusations of this nature. I should start from the beginning. Back when things were still normal, my family has always been the type to get together often, for birthdays, backyard barbecues, holidays, all that stuff. I grew up in a pretty normal suburban house with my parents and my brother, Cole, who is 3 years younger than me. We were always close to our extended family, especially my Aunt Marianne and her kids. My cousin Blair is my age. We basically grew up together. We went to the same high school parties and played video games in my basement. She would text me her class notes when I missed a day. I mean, we were genuinely close. Or so I thought. The thing is, Blair was always a bit dramatic. I'm not saying that to be mean. She was literally like that since she was a little kid. Everything had to be about her. All the stories she told at family gatherings were wildly exaggerated. And if she felt someone else was getting attention, she would somehow find a way to steer everything back to her. But I never, and when I say never, I mean never, thought she would go as far as she did. I had been dating Haley for about 2 years when all of this happened. Haley is incredible, honestly. She works as a registered nurse at the county hospital and is one of those people who always sees the good in others. You know what I mean? My parents adored her. My brother Cole always told me not to screw things up with her because she was the best thing that had ever happened to me. And he was right. We lived together in a small 2-bedroom apartment near my job, nothing fancy, but it was ours, and we were doing well, genuinely happy. I worked in the operations department of a medium-sized logistics company. It was a good salary with solid benefits, everything normal and stable. The day everything went to hell started like any other Saturday. My parents had organized a barbecue at their house, one of those typical summer gatherings where the whole family comes. You know the drill. Hamburgers, hot dogs, cold beer, the younger cousins running all over the backyard. Haley and I got there around 2 in the afternoon. We brought a few bags of chips and a 6-pack of craft beer I had picked up from a new microbrewery near our apartment. Blair was already there when we arrived, chatting with my Aunt Marianne and my mom in the kitchen. She greeted me normally, with a hug and a "Hey, Elliot. What's up?" Nothing weird, nothing that would make me think something was wrong. The afternoon went by completely normally. Seriously, my dad was at the grill with my uncle. Cole was playing cornhole with some cousins in the backyard. Haley was helping my mom with the potato salad. I spent most of the time outside, drinking a couple of beers and chatting with family. I said hi to Blair a couple more times during the afternoon. We exchanged a few words about her new job as an administrative assistant, nothing out of the ordinary. There were no weird moments, no awkward conversations, no sign that something was about to blow up. Haley and I left around 8 at night. Normal goodbyes, hugs. My mom telling us to drive safe, the usual stuff. We got home, watched some Netflix, and went to sleep. A completely normal Saturday, or so I thought. On Sunday morning, I woke up to about 15 missed calls from different numbers. It was around 11 a.m. I had silenced my phone the night before because I was tired. When I checked, I saw I had messages from my mom, my dad, Cole, my Aunt Marianne, even from cousins I barely talked to. They all said things like, "Call me urgently," or "We need to talk now." My heart dropped. I thought someone had been in an accident or something. I called my mom first. She answered on the first ring, and the first thing she said, without even letting me speak, was, "Elliot, what did you do?" Just like that, not a question, but a direct accusation. I asked her what she was talking about, and she told me that Blair had called that morning, crying hysterically, saying that I had behaved inappropriately with her at the barbecue the day before. I remember perfectly just being silent, trying to process the words because they made no sense. I said, "Mom, what? What are you talking about?" I didn't touch Blair. I wasn't even alone with her at any point. But my mom sounded different, distant, and just told me that Blair was very upset and that the family was very worried. I hung up and checked our family's group text chain. There it was. A long message from Blair, sent around 9 a.m. It said something about how hard it was for her to write this, but that she needed to be brave and tell the truth. That a serious incident had occurred with me at the barbecue, that it had been something horrible and traumatic, and that she couldn't stay silent any longer. The message was super emotional, with a ton of details that sounded convincing but were completely false. She claimed it happened when she went to use the downstairs bathroom and that I had followed her into the hallway. She wrote that I had crossed a line and that she managed to get away but was devastated. She wrote it in such a detailed and dramatic way that anyone reading it without knowing the truth would believe it. I literally started shaking. Haley asked me what was wrong, and when I showed her the message, she was in shock. The first thing I did was write in the group, saying that it was completely false, that I had no idea what Blair was talking about, that I would never do something like that. But there were already about 30 messages from other family members. Some telling Blair they supported her, others asking what happened. Some were silent. No one, and when I say no one, I mean absolutely no one, wrote anything defending me. The next few days were a total nightmare. My Aunt Marian called me, screaming, telling me I was a monster, asking how I could dare do that to her daughter, that she would make sure the whole family knew what kind of person I was. I tried to explain that it was a lie, that Blair wasn't telling the truth, but she just cried and yelled louder. She hung up, saying she never wanted to see me again. My dad called that afternoon. I hoped he would, I don't know, at least listen to me, but his tone was cold, distant. He asked me a bunch of questions, like, where were you at this specific moment? And are you sure nothing happened that you misinterpreted? Basically trying to find some way I could be guilty of something. I swore to him that nothing had happened, that Blair was lying, but I could hear in his voice that he didn't fully believe me. Or maybe he did, but was afraid to admit it. I don't know. He told me we needed to give the situation time, that things would calm down, but I knew they wouldn't. Cole was the one who hurt me the most. My brother, the guy I grew up with, who I shared a room with for years, didn't return my calls for days. When we finally spoke, he told me he didn't know what to think, that Blair sounded very convincing, but that he also knew me and found it hard to believe I would do something like that. I asked him to just trust me, that he knew I wasn't capable of what Blair was claiming, but he just replied that he needed time to process everything. He basically stayed neutral, and that felt almost worse than if he had just told me he hated me. My mom wavered between believing me and doubting me. Some calls she was understanding, saying she knew I was a good kid, but other times she sounded accusatory, asking me things like, "Are you completely sure there wasn't a misunderstanding? Or maybe you drank too much and don't remember clearly," as if I was some drunk who went around causing trouble without remembering it. It infuriated me, but it also hurt because she was my mom, the person who was supposed to defend me without hesitation. The only person who never, not for a second, doubted me was Haley. From the very first moment, she told me she knew it was a lie, that she had been with me the whole time at the barbecue, and that I had never been alone with Blair. She tried to talk to my family, wrote in the group text defending me, but they basically ignored her. My Aunt Marianne even replied with something super passive-aggressive, like, "It's natural for you to defend your boyfriend, but the truth always comes to light." I wanted to throw my phone against the wall every time I read those things. I decided to cut contact with all of them. I left the family group chat and blocked my Aunt Marianne. I stopped answering calls from my parents and Cole. I felt betrayed in a way I can't even describe. This was my family, the people who were supposed to know me better than anyone, and they were all willing to believe Blair without even asking for my full side of the story, without even considering that maybe, just maybe, she was lying. I realized that for them, it was easier to believe the dramatic victim than to defend the accused, even if the accused was their own son, their own brother. The following months were strange. I focused on my work, on Haley, on rebuilding my life without my family. I stopped going to any family events. Obviously, I stopped responding to messages from cousins trying to find out what happened. I basically isolated myself from that whole world. Haley convinced me to go to the gym to work off the anger and frustration, and honestly, it helped. I started going about 5 times a week. I got into better physical shape than I had been in years, and it gave me something to focus on besides the emotional chaos. I also reconnected with some friends from college I had lost touch with. We would go out on weekends, play pool, and watch football games at sports bars. Little by little, I started to feel like I could have a normal life without my family, though there was always this underlying sadness, you know what I mean? Like a part of me knew this wasn't how it was supposed to be, that your family shouldn't abandon you so easily. Work went well for me during that time. I got promoted to night shift supervisor with a decent pay raise of around $10,000 a year. My boss asked me a couple of times if everything was okay, because according to him, I seemed different, more serious, but I just told him it was personal stuff, and he didn't press it. Haley and I grew even closer. She was there every night when I got home from work, listening to me vent, reminding me that I wasn't alone, that what Blair had done was unforgivable, but that eventually the truth would come out. I wanted to believe her, but honestly, I had lost faith in that. It was about 5 months of this strange state, living a parallel life without my family, before things started to change. One Tuesday night, I was at home watching TV when I got a Facebook notification. It was a message from Blair. My heart leaped, not with excitement, but with a kind of panic mixed with anger. I hadn't spoken to her since the day of the barbecue. I opened the message, and it was long, like 3 paragraphs. It started by saying, "Hi, Elliot. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I completely understand." Then it went on with a bunch of confusing justifications and explanations about how she had been going through a very difficult time in her life back then, that she was dealing with undiagnosed mental health issues, that she had acted impulsively. And at the end, almost at the very end of the message, was the part that made me feel a mix of relief and absolute fury. She admitted she had lied. She wrote, "I know what I did was wrong and that I falsely accused you of something terrible. You don't have to forgive me, and I don't expect you to, but I needed to tell you the truth." I stared at the screen for I don't know how long. Haley was on the night shift at the hospital, so I was alone in the apartment. I read the message about 10 times to make sure I was understanding it correctly. Blair was admitting she had lied. After 5 months of my life being destroyed, of losing my family, of being treated like a monster, she casually sends me a Facebook message saying, "Oops, I lied, my bad." I didn't respond. I took screenshots of the message and sent them to Haley. She called me immediately, even from work, and told me this changed everything, that I had to share this with my family. But honestly, I didn't want to. I was so angry, so hurt. That part of me wanted them all to keep thinking I was guilty just so I could keep them out of my life. But Haley convinced me to at least send it to my parents and Cole, that they deserved to know the truth. I sent the screenshot to my mom first, with no additional text, just the picture of Blair's message. She replied about 20 minutes later, first with an "Oh my God," and then she called me, crying. She apologized 1,000 times, saying she had been a terrible mother, that she should have never doubted me, that she was devastated for not having defended me. I told her it was okay, but it really wasn't. I still felt all the resentment and betrayal. She wanted me to come to the house to talk in person, but I told her I needed time. Cole called me that same night. He apologized in a more direct way, without all the drama like my mom. He told me he had been a coward for not picking a side, that he should have supported me from the beginning, that he was very sorry. I thanked him, but I also made it clear that I wasn't going to forget how they had all abandoned me so easily. He understood, or at least he said he did. My dad was the last one to call, about 2 days later. He has always been more emotionally closed off, kind of old school, so I wasn't expecting much. But he sounded genuinely regretful. He told me he had made a terrible mistake by doubting me, that as a father he should have defended me no matter what, that he couldn't imagine what I had been through. I told him I forgave him, but that things couldn't go back to the way they were, at least not soon. Through my cousin Graham, who was one of the few who stayed in touch with me during this whole time, albeit very discreetly, I found out what was happening with Blair. Turns out, her life was completely falling apart. She had lost her job at the administrative office because, according to Graham, she'd had several incidents of lying about things at work. Things like reporting she was sick when she wasn't, saying she had completed projects she hadn't even started. Her boss eventually got fed up and fired her. My Aunt Mary Ann, after learning the truth about the false accusation, basically kicked her out of the house. Graham told me there was a horrible fight where my aunt yelled at Blair that she had embarrassed her in front of the whole family, that she had destroyed the relationship with her nephew over a ridiculous lie, that she didn't want her in her house. Blair had to go live with a friend. But according to Graham, that situation didn't last long either because Blair started creating drama there too. And to top it all off, the boyfriend she had at the time, a guy named Calvin who she had been with for about 2 years, also left her. Graham told me Calvin found out about the whole false accusation situation and started questioning other things Blair had told him during their relationship. He realized she had a pattern of lying and manipulating situations to get attention or sympathy, so he broke up with her. I'm not going to lie. When Graham told me all of this, I felt a kind of dark satisfaction. It's not that I wanted Blair to suffer, exactly, but I couldn't feel sorry for her after what she did to me. She chose to lie. She chose to destroy my reputation and my family relationships, and now she was facing the consequences of her actions. It seemed fair to me, honestly. The family slowly started to distance themselves from Blair as well. My Aunt Marian stopped inviting her to family events. Other cousins started ignoring her calls. She basically became the family pariah, the person no one wanted anything to do with. Graham told me Blair had tried calling him and other cousins, crying, saying everyone had abandoned her, but nobody wanted to deal with her drama after everything that had happened. I've started to rebuild some relationships with my family, but it's slow and complicated. I see my mom about once a month for coffee. I talk to Cole more often on the phone. With my dad, it's harder. I still feel a lot of resentment towards him because I expected more from him as my father. But we are trying. What I'm not going to do is forgive Blair. A lot of people in the family, especially the older aunts who are always trying to keep the peace, have told me I should consider forgiving her, that she was going through problems, that family is important. But I tell them no, that what she did is unforgivable. She didn't just falsely accuse me of something horrible. She kept up the lie for months while she watched my life fall apart. That's not something you forgive with a simple, I'm sorry. Graham told me a few weeks ago that Blair is going to therapy now, that she is supposedly working on her issues with compulsive lying and attention-seeking behavior. Honestly, I don't care. I hope it helps her and that she doesn't destroy anyone else's life, but it's not my problem. Last week, I went to my parents' house for dinner for the first time since everything happened. It was weird, like everyone trying to act normal, but with this underlying tension from all that had occurred. Cole was there with his new girlfriend. My mom had cooked my favorite meal as a sort of peace offering. It was okay, I guess. It wasn't like before. It probably never will be, but it's something. Haley is still my rock through all of this. She told me the other day that she's proud of how I've handled everything, that not many people could go through what I went through and come out on the other side. I'm not sure I agree with that. I feel like I'm barely surviving sometimes, but I appreciate that she thinks so. We are talking about moving to a bigger apartment, maybe adopting a dog, normal things that normal people do when they want to build a life together. And that's more or less where I am now. My family is slowly coming back into my life, but with very clear boundaries. Blair is facing the consequences of her actions, and I'm trying to move on, to build something new from the pieces that were left after everything exploded. It's not perfect. Some days it's not even particularly good, but it's my reality now, and I'm learning to live with it. Comment. I know stories like this can bring up a lot of emotions for many of you. It's a strong reminder of how important it is to protect your peace. Sometimes, the greatest act of self-respect is drawing a line and deciding what you will and will not accept in your life. Healing doesn't always mean forgiveness or going back to how things were. It can simply mean accepting what happened and choosing to move forward with wisdom. It's also a powerful reminder to approach difficult situations with kindness and a little more patience. We are all responsible for the energy we put out into the world and for the stories we choose to believe. Surround yourself with people who will stand by you and seek the truth, not just the easy story. I hope you all find the strength to build a life filled with honesty and genuine support. Always remember that your peace is worth protecting. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.